Arthur, No Fee Fitness here, and today we're going to talk about 3 testosterone myths that just refuse to die even though laboratories have pulled the curtain back on them again and again. I know hormones sound glamorous, I know they promise shortcuts, but by the end of this conversation you will see why the basics still win and why chasing every new vial or booster is like pouring fuel into a car that already has a full tank. The first myth says that more testosterone automatically multiplies the muscle you build from every rep. One landmark experiment put that claim under a microscope. Healthy, strength-trained men were split into 4 pods for 10 weeks. One group kept training but stayed natural. Another group took 600 milligrams of testosterone enanthate each week, yet did no workouts. A third combined the drug with 3 strength sessions a week, and the last group did absolutely nothing and took placebo injections. At the finish line, both the training stimulus and the hormone produced clear gains, yet the men who lifted while on testosterone simply showed the arithmetic sum of those 2 independent effects. There was no hidden synergy, no magical acceleration. The men who skipped the gym entirely still gained nearly as much lean tissue as the lifters, proving that the drug acts like a separate engine rather than a turbocharger for your workouts. Those results were not a one-off fluke from an extreme dose. Later dose-response studies stepped through the entire physiological range, from men who were barely below normal all the way to men hovering at the top of it. Each incremental bump in testosterone added a small slice of fat-free mass, yet when those same subjects performed identical resistance programs, the slope of their week-to-week improvements stayed parallel no matter where they started on the hormone chart. In plain language, testosterone determines part of your starting line and part of your ceiling, but the rate at which you sprint toward that ceiling is written mostly by the tension you place on the fibers and by how faithfully you recover afterward. Look at intersex comparisons and the picture grows even clearer. Men live with about 15 times the circulating testosterone women carry, yet a fresh meta-analysis published early this year confirmed that when men and women of similar training status follow the same program, they gain almost identical percentages of new muscle. The absolute kilograms can differ because the average man begins with more mass, yet the weekly progress graphs rise in near lockstep. That tells us the machinery inside human muscle does not need a massive androgen push to respond. It needs tension, nutrients, and time. If testosterone were a direct amplifier of training, gyms would be full of men gaining conspicuously faster than women, and natural hard gainers would lag miles behind their high T peers. Controlled studies repeatedly fail to show that pattern. Muscle protein synthesis spikes after heavy lifting, whether your serum level sits in the high or low end of normal. That is why coaches still lean on progressive overload, balanced macros, and strategic deloads instead of hormone tinkering as their premier tools for growth. The second myth paints testosterone as an emotional detonator that turns mild-mannered guys into fire-breathing maniacs. The idea of roid rage is catchy, but double-blind research keeps taking the wind out of it. Volunteers who received genuinely high doses, big enough to triple or quadruple their natural levels, reported no consistent changes in mood, irritability, or decision-making when neither they nor the clinicians knew who had the real deal. In one large cohort, more than 4 out of 5 men could not guess correctly whether they were on hormone or placebo, and their psychological test scores stayed inside the same healthy range they had shown before the trial. Why then do angry outbursts and swagger stories circle every discussion about gear? Expectation is a powerful drug. In a classic placebo experiment, collegiate lifters swallowed tablets they believed were a potent oral steroid, yet the pills were nothing but sugar. Convinced they had pharmaceutical help, the athletes trained harder, logged stricter diets, and racked up strength gains of 8 to 15% in only 7 weeks, 4 to 5 times more than teammates who knew they were unassisted. The jump came solely from belief. The mind felt charged, so the body worked with more conviction. To be fair, a small minority of users do experience manic episodes or heightened aggression. Researchers estimate perhaps 1 in 10 falls into that bucket, and the risk climbs when synthetic derivatives are stacked or when personal stress levels are already high. Yet for the vast majority, testosterone on its own alters mood far less than poor sleep, overreaching, or financial anxiety. In other words, before blaming hormones for sudden grumpiness, check whether you stayed up scrolling your phone past midnight. Now comes myth number 3, the one that keeps the supplement aisle buzzing. Shelves glitter with natural test boosters that vow to restore youthful vitality, torch fat, and stack muscle without needles. A systematic review released in late 2023 sifted through more than 50 controlled trials and concluded that the overwhelming majority of these products failed to raise total testosterone at all. Only two nutrients, betaine and HMB, nudged numbers upward in male athletes. And the bump was so small, it sat well inside the day-to-day fluctuation your body already experiences between sunrise and sunset. Even worse, warning, once celebrated ingredients can flip from hero to hazard. D-aspartic acid went from early promise to a red flag after animal work linked chronic intake to testicular toxicity. Herbal extracts that look effective in men with clinical hypogonadism rarely move the needle in healthy lifters. Independent lab audits keep finding undeclared steroids or prohormones lurking inside over-the-counter blends, a gamble that can shut down your own endocrine production or trigger a positive doping test. That legal piece matters. Testosterone, along with every close cousin, sits on the World Anti-Doping Agency's prohibited list for 2025. Therapeutic use is allowed only under strict medical supervision for documented hypogonadism, and blood levels must remain inside an agreed clinical window. Athletes who import black market vials risk sanctions, counterfeit solvents, and infections. Non-athletes face the same counterfeit risk plus the very real possibility of HPTA suppression that drags energy, libido, and mood below baseline for months after a cycle ends. So what genuinely moves your testosterone in a healthy direction? Start with sleep. A week of restricting young men to 5 hours a night slashed their daytime testosterone by up to 15%, a larger drop than most boosters ever promised to reverse. 8 solid hours allows the nightly pulses of luteinizing hormone that spark androgen production. Stress management also pays dividends. Chronic cortisol blunts the gonadal axis, so carving space for mindful downtime, laughter, and social support does more for long-term hormone health than any capsule. Nutrition rounds out the picture. Adequate energy intake prevents the metabolic alarm bells that tell your body now is not the time for reproduction. Zinc and magnesium participate in steroidogenesis and in regulating sex hormone binding globulin, yet randomized trials show that topping up these minerals helps only when you were genuinely deficient in the first place. A colorful diet rich in whole grains, nuts, legumes, lean proteins, and plenty of plants covers those bases for most active adults, and the same menu fuels recovery so you can push progressive loads under the bar. To tie everything together, remember this central truth. Testosterone is real and it is potent, but its reputation has outgrown its reach. The hormone builds tissue directly when injected, yet it does not multiply the benefit of the iron you lift. For most men, its mood effects are subtle and often overshadowed by belief and context. Over-the-counter boosters are unreliable at best and risky at worst, while lifestyle levers, sleep, stress, nutrition, and well-programmed resistance remain both safe and remarkably effective. Train patiently, recover intentionally, nourish fiercely, and live with purpose. Do those 4 things and your endocrine system will follow your lead, sitting comfortably inside the healthy range that evolution intended. Chase shortcuts instead and you may gain a few fleeting kilos but lose the very resilience that makes strength matter. Grab the bar, grab your rest, and grab your life by the horns. The hormone story will sort itself out in your rearview mirror.